feelings. You're taking in information from everywhere. You know, you're holding, so, and again, they're just, that is how you bring in information. Many, I worked with the miners, and any scientists, chemists, they're always doing, doctors are going to be S. You know, and so that's, when you think of your team, if you're a doctor, you don't want your doctor to go, I have a gut feeling that it's this. You know, let's give you this medicine. You want more, you know, you're like, nah, I don't think so. So again, it's, and however, I wanted to share, because in this one place I'm working, everybody's very strong S's, except their creative guy, he does all their art, and he is the NP, which we'll talk about anyway. He's totally different, and so there is some conflict. They're like, because they're like, why isn't he like us? It's like, he's an artist. You know, you're paying him to be creative, and then you get mad at him that he's not, you know, step by step by step by step. Thinking versus feeling, this is how we make decisions. And for example, Rick is a very strong T, and I bet most professors are. They like to ask questions, and they'll make a decision because it's the right decision to make, regardless of the consequences. If it's right, and feeling, I have a big F, is every decision I make, it's like, how's it going to impact this person? How is it going to affect? Oh, I'm not going to do that. It's going to hurt their feelings. But sometimes that's really, as a leader, that's not good. That is, and Rick's helping me on that. And I, as an F, again, which is, I think, it's one of my best qualities. If I'm caring, I am. But I also get my feelings hurt. When I was younger, I would be a victim. Oh, woe is me, you know. So I'm learning, again, the Myers-Briggs was really helpful to go, okay, I am a very strong F. And Rick's a very strong T. He would ask me questions, and I'd get all defensive. And I'd like, knock it off. You know, so I'm holding myself to a higher standard. I know I hate conflict. Hate it. I always want to fix it. But you know what? Conflict is sometimes okay. And you can't always fix it. And so again, that is how you make, how to make decisions. And I remember asking Rick, how do you fire somebody? You know, oh, I mean, like, that would be so hard. And this is, since I've never had to fire somebody, oh wait, I take that back, I did. But I asked him, how do you do it? And he says, generally when you have to fire somebody, when they're in your bottom 10%, they're ready. You're doing them a favor. I do not know why, but I talk with people, I meet with people, and they go, I hate my job. Hate it. It's like, well, why aren't you looking for another job? Why? It's that kind of lacking, I don't know, would they lose their energy? They hate what they have, but they're not willing to look for something new. And generally, it sometimes takes to get fired to kind of like, oh, wake them up, and off they go, they find a job they love. But it's literally, if you've given your employee time and time of trying to challenge them, trying to help them, trying to make sure they're in the right position, and it's not working, firing them, it really is. Probably, it's not nice, it's not fun, it's difficult, but when you think that you are doing them a favor, and you also have to look after the best interest of your business and your employees. Okay, judging versus perceiving. This is how you choose to work. A J, which I'm a J, I hated the word judge though. Oh my goodness, hated it. When I first took the Myers-Briggs, first I thought the ENFP, I'm an ENFJ, and Rick is a ENTP. But I thought that was like, this is cults. Like, this is a cult, everyone's like, and then Rick says, you're a BLT and I'm a PB&J. You know, so I mean, it just feels so, everyone's talking about their letters, and so the gal who gave it to us says, oh, and by the way, you're a ENFJ, a judge. And we had just gotten married, and I'm like, oh, you married a judge. Oh, and again, me being F, oh, I'm a judge. You know, anyway, for 2 weeks I went around thinking, oh, I'm a judge, and oh, I'm a horrible person. So anyway, judge, I still think it's not a very nice word in this context, but it is what it is. But a J likes making lists. If you know you have a strong J, they're going to be on time. They start early. They have 1 or 2 choices to make. We're making it now. Let's go. J. P's are going to wait to the last minute. They don't care if they're late. They often do their very best work at the deadline. You know, and if they're late, it's okay. And they're always thinking, maybe I'll have more information, a little bit more information that will give me the best decision. They're very spontaneous. J's are very not spontaneous. This is another one. Rick's a P. I'm a J. We literally had J days and P days. That sounds very odd, but like we'd go for a hike, and I'd be like, "Where are we going?" He goes, "Let's just go see where we want to go. Let's just go." Okay, how long are we going to be gone? I don't know, till ever we want to come back. And I'm getting a little anxious, and like, so finally it's not that but you know what? I always wanted to be a P. And again, this is where the Myers-Briggs helped me, is like, oh, I am a J. But that, you know what? I have an accounting business. I have an executive coaching business. I'm a J. I have the discipline to do it. I will have a list. Rick says everyone should marry a J. Because I mean, I get stuff done. If I say I'm going to do it, I do it. If I say I'm going to be here at this time, I'm there probably 15 minutes early. So, but I realize that itself, that's who I am. But he helps me be more spontaneous, but he also understands together we need a balance. So sometimes I'll do my best to be a P, but he'll give me a little bit of routine, a little guidance of what I'm doing. It's just who I am. And I think every once in a while he goes, you're turning more into a P. I go, yeah, I'm trying. But I think it's first accepting who you are today and knowing that's who you are. Everybody here, you have your natural strengths, talents, and abilities, that they're yours. Don't try to be like your neighbor. I do want to be more like Rick in so many ways, and I am learning, because you know, he's such a good example in so many ways. Here's just one thing, emotional intelligence, social intelligence. He's amazing. On the phone, just something so simple. Everybody calls, "Hi, how are you today?" But he says it not just, "How are you today?" "Hi, how are you today?" He asks, and I'm almost listening. But next thing you know, and he ends up chatting and talking. But next thing you know, he gets free upgrades. And, "Oh, Mr. Wolk, what would you like?" But you know, he's not looking for the freebies, but just because he's naturally kind and takes that extra moment to see how they're doing, or you know, so it's like, I'm going to do that. But as you know, so sometimes when I talk with people, it's like, you know, at least start, you know, that act as if. They're like, "That's so not me." It's like, well, then just practice it. You know, they do that in AA. You know, what is it? Fake it till you make it, or whatever. Sometimes it might not feel like your style, but anyway. He's just so good that way. But so your J versus P. This is though in the work environment where you guys can have. You can imagine. You have, well, if the boss is a J and you're a big P, that's like that artist guy. They want everything on time. But then to understand this guy, he does his best work when it is right up to the deadline. But there, again, it's J versus P, how you do your best work on a team. If I need my stuff early because I want to get started now, like, perfect example. A month ago, I knew I was going to be doing this. I started on my outline, which again, it's like, duh. I mean, it was like, you know, it's just sort of like, what do I, and then I would write stuff and I'm like, well, what would I want to share? And, you know, and I'd erase. And anyway, I've been planning this for a month. And of course, I don't have a PowerPoint, you know, but it's like, but thinking about it. Rick goes, "Oh, I need some time yesterday morning to work on my presentation." I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" And you can tell. I mean, he does the stuff, but that is Rick, and his Myers-Briggs is funny because he's a P, but he's an early starter. So Rick says, "I'm an early starter. I just don't finish anything." But there was one story that it was of a coaching clients. Two managers in this company beat each other up. They got in a fist fight. Not good. They were told that you're either going to be fired or get coaching. This generally isn't the best way to start, to coaching. Because coaching is a fun thing. It's positive. So you go in and it's like, "Hi, do you know what coaching is?" And they're not. And they're only doing it because they don't want to get fired. And they ended up, the side note, ended up loving it. And then other people are like, "We want to get coached." But it is fun. Coaching is a blast because it works. But so first thing was try to get them to it wasn't going to be a bad thing. On that website, www.authentichappiness.org, there's a test called the Values and Action Signature Strengths. You can all take it. It's free. And And it gives you a list of what your strengths are. So that's generally where I always start in coaching. Let's start with what your strengths are. We're not talking about weaknesses, because again, research has shown, figure out what your strengths are, your natural talents and abilities, work on those to improve them, and then again, either delegate your weaknesses or manage for your weaknesses. This is I love the story of coaching, but it's not as good as it used to be, because it's about Tiger Woods, and he's not as pure as I used to think he was. But Tiger Woods, he was, well, and again, his golf is not quite up to speed anymore, but when he was on the top of his game, he hired a coach. Okay, at that time, his drive, he could hit a ball farther than anybody else in the PGA. He was 60th on his ability to get out of sand traps. So when he hired a coach, what do you think they worked on?
Sand traps.
No, his swing. He was already #1 swing. That was his strength. What they did is they spent a year working on his swing, and they made it even better. So because we have strengths doesn't mean we don't want to exercise them. Think of athletes and people who can sing, people have these natural abilities that are so obvious. I still say I'm a prodigy. I just haven't figured out what, but sometimes people, it's so obvious. Your voice, oh my gosh, you're a singer. Tiger Woods, obviously, or people who are athletic. But you know what they do? They end up spending hours and hours and hours and hours. And they said it takes 10,000 hours to become an expert at something. So it's not like, oh, I have this strength. So you find out what your strengths are and decide how can you practice and practice and practice to make them better. And then also the more, again, your strength. If Tiger Woods is the best golfer, or was, how often is he going to be in the sand traps? If he's still working on his swing, that focus on sand traps is going to be less and less and less and less. But anyway, so that's something is you find out where are your strengths and build the muscle. Practice new ways of using your strength, whatever it might be, and ask your friends. And sometimes what's hard if you're not a good singer, an artist, or athlete, it's so natural in us what our strengths, we don't see them. So ask people around you, what are my strengths? And get ready, because it's very heartfelt. You're like, really? That's me? Really? That's what you see? See how people perceive you. And that also, to be honest, can be very frightening. Someone's perception of you might not be what you want the world to see. And everybody's perception is correct, because it's theirs. In their mind, you may know that's not right, but it doesn't matter. If that's what they think, you either have to give them some more information so they change their perception, but in everyone's mind, what I see is what so that is something, truth doesn't always, the perception, this is why I was horrified, the perception of me with my 8 by 10 glossy in there was like, oh, that is, it's like, so not the introduction I wanted, like, whoa, who's that, from you. But anyway, pay attention to perceptions. But also talk to your friends, colleagues, ask, what are my strengths? What do you think I do really, really, really well? Then once you know your strengths, beware, because strengths overused become a weakness. And that one, for sure, I'm thinking, how does that work? One of my strengths is I'm very conscientious. But what would that look like overused in a group, in a team?
Immovable.
What?
Immovable.
Mm-hmm.
Unable to move forward.
Well, it's very kind of what I was doing is I would just pick up people's jobs. I would end up doing their work for them. I would, and so I turned into a micromanager. And also when I was being coached, I was like, I don't want to be a micromanager. Ooh, I so wasn't that, And so anyway, just pay attention of that, what a strength might look like if, overused. And another thing, when you're under stress, you generally go to your comfort areas. When I'm stressed, I go to accounting and I start and worry about, fret about our bills or whatever. But, and it's just something we naturally do. And so when you're stressed, whatever your strengths are, let's say you might become